Thank you all for joining us for another episode of CYC Guy Talk. Now, if you happen to see our last episode regarding Think Before You Act, I would like to inform you that this episode is dedicated as a continuation because the discussion kept going for another, I can't even tell you how long, right after we started taping. So we're just ready to continue this discussion right now with you guys and share with the dialogue. And I welcome my brothers again. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your thoughts with us for another episode here. Now, really where we left off last time, we were talking about, in the whole process of thinking before you act, really what to do with this boredom. And we talked about preoccupying your time, but I know that, Tony, you had mentioned to me that you had some other thoughts, some examples. Yeah, I think that would be perfect to start our episode off. If we just give an example of something where there was some, action you did that you didn't really think through. So go ahead, brother.
Me and my friends, we were skating, in an area in Ridgewood, right? So, we were just bored and we wanted to do something fun. And we all got wasted and twisted and
For those that are not familiar with the term wasted or twisted, it has to deal with some type of intoxication of some sort or another.
So, we ended up, all just, we're done for the day, so I asked him if I could walk him home, are you okay? Are you fine? Do you need help? He's like, no, I'm fine, I could go home. So, I go get myself a Monster just to...
A Monster is a energy drink?
Yeah.
Energy drink, okay.
So wake myself back up, and my friend, he passes out on his way to his house, and he has a very low, he has very little to no pulse at all, and
wow.
He was pretty close to dying.
Oh, man.
Well, if we would have thought it over, we could have prevented this from happening. We would have done anything this stupid. Well,
what would you have done?
We would have just continued skating.
But what about the whole getting wasted part? Would you still have taken and whether you were drinking, whether you were smoking something, would you have still have encountered that, knowing the consequences of your friend?
At the time, I didn't know he would, he had a very low tolerance level. So,
it's kind of similar to with David. That one time he didn't know that he was going to be in a situation where he's looking at this woman, but he was in that situation, right? He just wasn't prepared for it. But the question is, would you have still, knowing what happened now, how does that affect you going forward?
I really regret doing it.
Regret doing what?
I regret smoking and drinking and just not thinking before I thought of doing something.
Well, okay, and I appreciate you really, honestly, and that's what I told you this before, I really appreciate the honesty on our show. And we're all here, no one is better than the other. No one is in a situation where oh, well, you've done that? No, we've all been through the same thing. I'm no different than you guys, and our audience is no different than us, and we all are one body of Christ. So, again, I appreciate your honesty in the situation. And I want to know, you regret doing it, you keep saying, but how does this impact your future? This situation, let's say.
Situation or after the situation?
Let me give you the context of David. He did this, he saw the woman, acted on it, he laid with her, he killed her husband, he was in agony for 18 years. That was kind of the consequences. What are the consequences now? What happened to your friend?
Luckily, he survived.
Thank God. Thank God.
He's still with us.
But what about future hangouts? Is this
still hang out? Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to stay clean for as long as possible. It's been a few months now.
Few months. Okay. Well, I'm really glad you brought this up because this is something that, in terms of preoccupying our time, like we were talking about before in our previous episode, whether you want to preoccupy your time with the gym, preoccupy your time maybe with skating. What I'm saying is, you might have been preoccupying your time with something and some people that wasn't necessarily a positive surrounding for you. So the temptation to act and to fall might have been easier if you were in a different environment. Would you say that is the case or not?
The environment we were in, like the area too, was just an empty area.
Mm-hmm.
If we were in public, which eventually we ended up being in public, but nobody really noticed. Well, as much as I remember, people did notice, but they really didn't do anything.
Okay, so now we talk about the environment has an effect, the people that you're with, right? The things the activities that you're taking part in, the environment that you're in, the people that you're around. What else? What else affected that night, that day?
What do you mean by that?
So, we said activities. So the getting wasted part. The friends that may have been accustomed to doing this more on a habitual basis. And the environment. You were in a place of a private area. So you didn't really have anybody watching you for you to feel like, okay, this is not the right thing to do. Were there any other factors involved in this decision that you acted upon?
The fact that I got caught. Like.
So you got caught. How did you get caught, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, his mother's friends with my mother, and his mother knew he was hanging out with me for the day. So she called my mother, asking, like, with a voicemail saying, "What is wrong with my son? What was your son and my son doing at that night?" So she was all stressed out and stuff, and that really hurt. And my parents talked to me about it, and they were just like on that moment, I felt really, really guilty. But if I hadn't been caught, because I've done it before, like I've done stuff like this before, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I would think it would really just pass through my mind. It wouldn't be that hard for me to just go do it. But now that you've been caught, you actually feel and you know the consequences. So now you're uncomfortable with yourself. You don't like.
So Tony, how is this going to affect you in the future? That's the question I was asking you earlier.
Same with the topic. I think a lot more now before I do something fun. Like it's just like fun for me. Is just go do something. Do something that people don't usually do.
Again, I appreciate that honest feedback, and I want to tell you that there's so many honest, fun things to do that don't require any type of wasted, way of life, but yet having a great, intoxicatingly high feeling of being around the fellowship of good people and doing good things in a good environment. So I think that we touch on those three things. Those are really important in when you're bored, to make sure to safeguard yourself. Again, make sure the environment that you're in is not like, let's use we have yours example, but we also have, again, as 100% evidence is in the situation with David. The place he was in, kind of similar with you. Was there anybody around?
What do you mean by around? Like in the surrounding environment?
No, that he was on the rooftop.
Alone.
He was alone, and he had his little servants, but nobody really to convict him, right?
We were completely alone. It's a flat area.
Perfect. Flat area. And then the activities, I mean, the ones we talked about, the ones David talked about were really getting lustful desires. And then, of course, all the senses were being utilized, right? So we have to really keep in mind there's a lot of different spiritual warfare types of things going on. Stephen?
Well, this also, his example really goes, again, with David, in the sense that after he slept with, what was her name?
Bathsheba.
Bathsheba. She conceived a child, and then he killed her husband. After that, he married her irregularly, and it was only after when Nathan came over, Nathaniel the prophet came over, and convicted him, like he got caught in the sight of God. That's when he started getting feeling upset, like guilty and like tormented, like you said, for 18 years.
So the conviction, the kind of, I guess, getting caught, you know, in whatever action that we're doing, really plays a big part in the way we live our life in the future. But the good part of really having this discussion is that we want to be able to share with each other here, and we are doing that just perfectly, but also to share with our viewers that you don't have to go through the consequences. You can think of it right before, and really, if you think of it in a more logical, more spiritual approach, you could prevent such consequences. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Mina, what are your thoughts? I know you got a lot going on there.
Well, let's see, I'll tell you a story about a kid.
Okay, yeah, kid. All right.
This kid. So, what happened with this kid is, one Friday night he was bored, couldn't find a ride anywhere, so he decided to hang around with, you know, some local kids, and he lied to his mom about where he was going. That was the first thing he did.
First thought that proved to an action that he didn't really think about.
Yeah, he just lied to his mom about where he was. He didn't tell her. I mean, it would have been fine if he did, but he didn't. So he hung out with the local kids. I mean, he told her he was at a place where he could stay for a while instead of where he really was. Then he met a girl while he was there.
Oh, the girl again.
And while he was there, some things happened.
Oh, this
So,
guy.
He wasn't thinking, and then once he got home, it was maybe like 11:30, and he was thinking about what he did, and he felt bad about it.
You know, let me tell you something, brothers. Let me tell you something right here, my brother. You know, we have a lot of people watching right now that are our age and your age, younger, older, high school, really going through these experiences with the girls where they do something with them, but they're so like with the impulse, with the passions, with the lusts and the desires. They don't really think it through, especially at that moment. Very similar to David. But you know what else? And again, I'm glad you shared us about your friend. We got to figure out who this guy is. I don't know. Yeah, no, never terrible. I don't know. God made all his beautiful creatures good. No, but terrible. But this is the thing. We have a situation now related to the girl thing, but it's dealing with the computer screens. It's dealing with the computer screens, and there's something they do. What they do is some of the people, the young brothers actually, who are the ones watching our show, for the most part, they look onto the computer screen, right, and they see the naked women. They see the fornication being produced right on the screens. You understand? And this allows them to get some type of desire in them that they want to act out, and in terms of doing so, I'll say it, it's guy talk. And I said with guy talk before, it's guy talk now. And that's masturbation, right? Hey, yo, it's guy talk. You say the dirty words, it's no problem, you know? Now, masturbation is something we're going to, God willing, have many episodes and talk about, really, because this is something that really a lot of guys struggle with. But this is a key thing in talking about thinking before you act. Now, I want to just hear from one last person. And again, I just introduced the topic of masturbation and pornography and, you know, dealing with lusts in women. Briefly, how does thinking before you act tie in with pornography?
Well, you're taught by the church and taught by your parents. And for the most part, I think we learn to accept these morals that pornography is bad for you. I mean, it's just completely lustful.
Again, you have 5 seconds.
Yeah, so when you're actually looking at the porn and then you decide to do it, you're not thinking about those morals, you kind of block them out and you just watch what you're not supposed to be watching.
And may or may not end up masturbating. Listen, I'm not saying about you, I'm saying this is the show. This is guy talk. We're talking about other guys and our guys and everybody. So, with that said, we kind of left it with a little bit of a cliffhanger, but the bottom line is we have to be conscious of our surroundings. We have to be conscious of our senses. We have to be conscious of who we're hanging out with, what we're doing, and remember that we are spiritual creatures. We have a desire within us. We have the ability to really, truly think before we act out on things. So I'll leave you with our discussion now, and I ask you to please continue to send us your feedback. Tell us what your thoughts are. And again, be in the mindset for our upcoming Facebook page. Till next time, thank you for watching CYC Guy Talk. We love you.